What's up guys, it's your boy Salt of the Earth. It's my first tutorial. The crazy thing is, the dark beat that I was supposed to be guiding you guys through, I actually deleted all the clips. So I'm gonna come to you guys with an all new beat that I was just creating the other day. It's gonna be a breakdown, not a tutorial. I'll try not to delete the clips next time, but let's get straight into the video. If you want more videos like this, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. Without any further ado, let's get straight into what I did. First open up a new song in GarageBand, you're gonna get this display that shows you a whole bunch of options for different plugins and instruments that you can use to start your beat. Now the first thing that I did is go over to Alchemy Synth, but I realized I wanted a different feel, so I went over to World Instruments and picked up this Erhu. I don't really know how you pronounce it, but that's how I'm gonna pronounce it for the day. So if you want to delete the track, go ahead and tap it once and delete it. And I kind of set up my melody based around this Erhu for the first kind of 8 bars. If you swipe right on the left kind of display tab here and click headphones, it'll allow you so that you only hear that one track. And if you want to do multiple, you can click more multiples and it will only play you that track. So let's go ahead and get right into what I did with the Erhu here. Now, I don't really know any music theory, but I just went by ear. So you can see what I did here. I was going for a kind of dark vibe. Nothing too crazy. You guys need to realize it's not always the crazy beats with you're doing too much that goes hard. Sometimes it's just the little things. Sometimes it's just that basic chord progression is what they call it. After that, I layered it on with another world instrument. You can see if you tap the multiple icons. I layered it with a pipa next. I didn't really know what it was. I just wanted to experiment with new instruments. You double tap it slowly, go to edit, and that's what I did. So after I finished laying down the Erhu notes, I wanted something that complemented the low octaves or the low range of the song, and so I went with another world instrument, the pipa. In order to get full beats, complete beats, guys, you need to have what's called the 3-step pattern, or 3-step plan. You need notes that'll go in the low range of the song, you need notes that'll play in the middle range of the song, and you need notes that'll play in the high range of the song. Basically what I'm saying is you need low, middle, and high notes. If you have those 3 connected together, it'll make your melody sound more full and complete, and it'll ultimately complement your song as a whole and allow your bass to hit harder. I went into the top right hand corner where I see 3 squares, tap on that, world instruments, go to pipa, and immediately what I come out with is this display. Now if you just hit any random point in the notes, it'll just give you one single pluck. That's okay. In the bottom left hand corner, that controls how fast you can go on the pipa. So if I want it slow, I would go with the left flower, but if I want it fast, I would ease my thumb along to the right flower. Now you can see that this doesn't exactly match our key or the sound of the song. So I'm going to tap the right hand corner where it says major pentatonic, and I'm going to scroll down to minor blues. And that matches our song. Now disclaimer, I actually did change the key of the song by tapping this little gear here icon, going into song settings, and I changed the song to C major for now. This is what we're gonna go with. Now, because this is a breakdown, I'm not going to show you how I recorded it. That'll be for a later tutorial when I don't delete my clips. But I will show you how I laid down this piece. If I pinch the screen, it will shorten everything up for me. And then if I click done and swipe right, once again, hit those headphones, double tap the actual track, pinch, and boom. So at this point in the song, this is what my song sounded like. Now you can already tell that this song doesn't sound full, it doesn't sound complete. I've got a high middle, which is the erhu. I've got low, which is the piper, but it's missing that mid and low octaves that really add the punch, you know what I'm saying? So I immediately went into Alchemy Synth and picked out a piano. Gonna hit the drop down in the top left corner. Epic cloud formation is always the first thing GarageBand is gonna give you. I'm gonna go into main categories, and I've downloaded a lot of presets and banks that come with GarageBand that are free, but the grand piano or classical grand already comes free, guys. It already comes downloaded with GarageBand. All you need to do is open it up. The piano is really good to add your low octaves. It's also really good to create transitions for the listener, and I just end up using it anyway for a really nice piece. So I'm going to delete it and come into my already used piano by double tapping. And in order to get that lasting sound, I use sustain right here. I'm going to swipe to the left versus this. Alright, so with this, I use something called merge recording. When you go into your piano, hit the gear in the top right section and go to track controls. Now when you do that, go into track settings and click recording. Then go on merge recording and click it on. What that's going to do is basically allow you to do multiple takes of recordings, but it will all piece together and it will not delete the previous recording that you had. I'll make a video or a short about it later. Make sure you subscribe. I'll go into how to use GarageBand and then producer basics, okay? So for the piano, I basically went in and you can see what I did. So at this point in the song, my erhu with pipa with classical grand, this is what it sounds like. This song is sounding more fuller by the minute, but in order to make a dark beat a truly dark beat, you've got to add vocals, you've got to add a pad, something that basically fills it soft. You barely hear it, but it still complements to that fullness that you're looking for. So what I did for my pads was I added these three pads here: Beyond Deep Skies, Crystalline Structure, and Deep Harmonic Waves. These are pads that you have to download. If you go into keyboard and more sounds, get more keyboard sounds, you'll see all of the available banks that GarageBand has free for you. What I did is downloaded Alpha Waves. These guys, they have some really good songs, some really good pads in there that you really need for anything from cinematic to dark beats. So I'm not going to go really deep into what I did for these. I'm just going to let you hear it. guys can hear that 3-part structure right here. Right here in the crystalline structures. You get that rumbling bass. That just sounds authoritative. I love that bass. That rumbling bass to add to that low range. And then right here, you get that high range. Once again, all 3 pads, plus my erhu pipe and classical grand. And even though it's just about there, I still think that it needed that touch, that artistic touch. So I added what's called a mallet. And a mallet is basically a bell or anything that kind of just tings, you know what I'm saying? Anything that tings. So I added charm bells. This is also from the Alpha Waves bank. Go in here. I went into harmonic bell, messed with a little of the controls, and basically laid down this track. Pretty repetitive. And so at this point in the song, this is the full melody. So let's go ahead and handle what I did with that FX track down here. So GarageBand has this kind of cool thing. If you go to the FX in the top left hand corner, you'll see you can have a filter. You have this, which basically breaks it up. You have this, which is basically a bit crusher, makes it sound like it came from video games back then, and a repeater that repeats stuff. You also have this, which makes it sound like a hip hop from the old times, and a slow reverse. That is not how you get reversed. I'll make a video on it later. And then you have a stop. I'll go deep into FX later on in a later video, but for now I used this repeater right here. What I did is basically edited it so it transitions smoothly into my actual verse 1. So this is my song right now. Alright guys, let's get into what I did for the verse. So other than adding a pre-arranged loop riser that you can find at the top left hand corner and searching riser, which is basically, it gives you that dubstep kind of house feel. You can scroll through those on your own time, but I basically choose stingers and impacts. Went into here, and it was the Almost Human riser number 1 for this one. And I did Cyber Sweep Impact number 1 for the impact that transitions into my main song. Alright guys, let's go ahead and discuss what I did for the verse. Now the first thing that I always like to do is get a perk, so I go to those 3 squares, grab me a beat sequencer, and guys, the first bank that they load out is always Modern 808, and it sounds horrible. Here's an example. This is one of the pre-made beats that they already have. You're not making hard-hitting beats with this, guys. What you are making hard-hitting beats with, though, is Ultimate 808. That kit, that bank that they have for you. Guys, my favorite one is Future Flex. Y'all are already hopping. I'm not going to go exactly into how I laid these down. But for now, I use this. So let's go ahead and discuss what I did for the verse. So other than adding a pre-arranged loop riser that you can find at the top left hand corner and searching riser, what I did is basically, it gives you that dubstep kind of house feel. You can scroll through those on your own time, but I basically choose stingers and impacts. Y'all are already hopping. I'm not going to go exactly into how I laid these down. But that's there for you. That's basically what I did. Now, one thing to take your beats to the next level, guys, is to pan your drums. What do you mean pan your drums? So what I want you to do, right, is go to these track lines right here on the left, tap it once, duplicate it. I'm going to delete it because I already duplicated it twice. Duplicate it twice so that you have 3 beat sequencers all together in total. Click the first one that you duplicated, which is the second one. Go to track controls and you're going to see track pan. So what this basically does, right, is it tells the sound to go in the left earbud more or the right earbud more, or the left part of the speaker and the right part of the speaker. I renamed this Future Flex L because I wanted this to go into the left ear and I panned it left. Similarly, I panned the other one right. And what that'll do is it'll create this kind of echo effect if you layer your beats right, to where if I just listen to these 3, it'll sound a whole lot cooler than with no pan. So that variation really does help out your beat and your song to have a whole different level of being hard, I guess. I don't know. Alright, so the next thing that I did after I laid down my perks was I went to sweeping 808. The one thing that I don't like about GarageBand is even though it's an entry-level DAW or digital audio workstation, and it allows people that have no idea what they're doing producing to get right into producing, there's some limitations to it that kind of constrict you on your creativity. So what I did is I again went to the 3 squares. I went to Alchemy Synth. In the 80 Ultimate 808's bank, they have a whole bunch of 808 basses for you to choose from. And what I did is I wanted that signature hard-hitting bass that's in a lot of hip-hop. I went to the sweeping 808 bass. Guys, if you want this sound, you're going to have to do a little mixing, okay? You're going to have to mess with these knobs. I was afraid of these knobs when I was just starting out. Guys, don't be afraid. Experiment, okay? You can always just go right back out and choose a new one if you don't like how it sounds. But playing with those knobs will give you that signature 808 bass sound that you like. This is my 808 bass track. It hits hard. Alright, and after I laid those 2 down, that was basically it, guys. When you have your verse, you just continue all of your previous loops, okay? There's nothing special about it. You just continue your previous loops. If you want to add your main melody, shift it up an octave, you can do that. But other than the drums and the bass, there's nothing crazy about the verse. Similarly, just like the verse 1 was super basic, chorus is also going to be super basic. All I did is take out my erhu, let that piper kind of have the spotlight. Didn't do absolutely anything for the classical grand or my 3 pads. Of course, I added in these bells that I didn't add in the verse. I added them in here to transition them into the verse 2. Guys, don't overdo certain stuff or your music will be too repetitive, alright? You got to know when to lay off of certain things and when to add them back in, and that was a time to add in my Charm Bells mallet. Now, in order to have another transition that wasn't the same exact transition that I have to go from the intro to verse 1, I added in this new track called Echolocation. It's part of the Alpha Waves bank as well, guys. I'm telling you, you need to download that Alpha bank. So what I did was basically randomly tapped some notes. You can hear what I did here. That really gives it not only a dark vibe, but it allows the listener to kind of get ready for the verse 2. Alright guys, let's go ahead and get into what I did for verse 2. Verse 2 is when the lyrics have to hit hard, guys. Verse 2 is when you really start coming in with that message. And so I took out the erhu, let the piper, shifted it up an octave so that it could have that spotlight, guys. Something that you can do that's simple but is crazy is shift your tracks up an octave. So what I did, right, double tap here. I went into the settings just for that piece. And you can scroll down and go to octaves and shift it up an octave. And that'll really change how it sounds, give your song a whole new profile. I kept the drums and the bass absolutely identical, and other than that, that's all I did. Now for the bridge, I took out the piper and the erhu. And during the bridge, guys, especially for dark beats, you really just want to let your pads or let your chorus, let your vocals, whatever you got that basically has the pad track, let it shine. Just let it do its thing. This is when the singer, the rapper, will most likely be singing, or there will be vocals in the background. Whatever the case, it's always basic, it's always simple. Don't overthink it. Yeah, that's all. And then for chorus 3, I added everything back together. Alright guys, let's go ahead and get into what I did for mixing. Mixing is one of the most important parts of producing, but it's also the most tedious part. However, if you stay patient with it, guys, your work will pay off. So what I did is, I like to do my mixing at the end of my track so I can kind of taper it to how I feel. I went with the erhu first, because that's the first track I laid down. Go to track controls, scroll down to plugins and EQ, and click this visual IQ icon. If you click on the analyzer button, right, while you're playing it, it'll show you exactly what the sound sounds like, so you know exactly what to taper down. Like for the bass, I cut out some of the bass frequencies and some of the treble frequencies, and just wanted to focus on that middle frequency. I did the same thing for the piper, cut down the bass, boosted the mid, didn't really do anything for the treble. And for the classical grands, same thing, take down the bass. Guys, when you're mixing your pieces, right, you really need to make sure that every single track, when you're editing that visual EQ, the bass needs to be tapered down. Why? I'll explain a little bit more in detail later in the video, but basically, in order to have that bass as rambunctious and as authoritative as you need it to be, you need the bass clear. You don't need anything messing with the lower frequencies. So that's about it. Another thing that I like to do when I'm mixing my tracks is I like to add reverb to my tracks, especially my melody tracks. It gives it a whole new feel. I'll go into what reverb is more deeply in my Producer Basics series, but reverb is basically, it makes it sound like you're in a chamber, you're in a certain room to where the acoustics are really great, and it'll really take your tracks to a whole new level, okay? So again, go into track settings, I increase the pre-delay, increase the spread, always make sure your wet is more than your dry, and that will give you this kind of feel. That's with reverb, here's without reverb. You may not be able to hear the difference. It's okay. Once you start producing and once you start getting a little bit more experienced in this kind of thing, you'll be able to tell exactly what your track needs. In order to elevate your bass above all the other tracks and make it really stand out and punch and hit, you know what I'm saying? You need to go into track settings. You need to scroll down to plugins and EQ. And this is why I decreased all of the basses on all of the other tracks. Because those frequencies will actually mess with your bass frequencies, and your bass won't be allowed to hit as hard as it needs to. And so what I did here is I went into the visual EQ. I went to gain. I increased the gain a little bit. I boosted the mid and the treble frequencies just a little bit and dragged them over so that I could hear that bass fully. And I, of course, increased the bass frequencies. If you listen closely, it almost sounds like the bass is kind of like almost slightly blotting out the other tracks. That's exactly what I wanted it to do. You've got to increase your bass based off of how you feel, pun intended. Go into Master Effects as well for reverb. You increase that as well. That's a different type of way you can get reverb. It ultimately just complements your piece, guys. Your mixing depends on what type of song you're making. If you're making a cinematic mixtape, do you really think you need to boost your bass track that much? No, you're probably going to want to boost your middle and treble tracks a lot. You've got to decide how you want to mix. The great thing about being a producer is the music is all in your hands. If you hung on this long towards the video, congrats to you. Thank you for tuning in. If you don't mind, subscribe, comment, like, and hit the bell so that you won't miss my next video. And as always, even though it's my first video, stay salty, guys. Stay the salt of the earth. Peace out.